Good evening. I mean, still afternoon. I'm saying good afternoon, man. Tomorrow's, you know, it's a decent fight, man. A make or break fight for both fighters in Lamont Roach and William Zepeda. You know, the winner of this fight will either resurrect their career or catapult careers. And William Zepeda, right? It'll probably resurrect his career if he gets a good finish, a knockout, knockdown, and wins the fight or something like that, right? It'll definitely reboost his stock. You know what I'm saying? Like, I think he only has one loss to Shakur. He's been out since that fight, and that was a pretty good fight. You know what I mean? But we knew Shakur was a superior boxer because, it was only one way for Zepeda to win that fight, pretty much. He didn't have the technical skill set like Shakur has, but he did wobble Shakur, and he does have power. He's a pressure fighter, and when you look at Lamont Roach, the setback was the draw to Pitbull Cruz. That was a setback. But he still looked good because a lot of people are not really. I think people know he's a good fighter. I don't think everybody's sold on him yet. So now if you win this fight, right, which is a free fight tomorrow, that catapults his career because now it puts him in position to fight a Shakur Stevenson, maybe. You know what I'm saying? Like because of that gives Shakur an opponent now. To me, I'm just a fan. I'm just giving my opinion. I just feel like it will catapult his career, and if they're the loser, right? I think if he loses, it's gonna turn him into it's gonna definitely set him back and maybe turn him into a journeyman. If he loses, that's gonna really look bad on. If he loses bad, especially, it's tank. That draw doesn't look too well on his resume. If Zepeda loses, he's definitely turned into a journeyman. He never fully reached his potential, and it's tough, man, because he was on to something, and they threw him in there with Shakur, and it reminds me of Oscar Valdez. Remember what happened to Oscar Valdez? The matchmaker Bob Arum, he was milking him, and he was putting him in there with guys, that he knew he was going to overwhelm. The shocker was when he beat Burchett or whatever. I don't think he was expected to really beat that guy Burchett, whatever his name is. And when he beat him, and then got a knockout, that made, it was an exciting fight that made for fans, particularly Mexicans and, boxing fans, want to watch the guy fight. So Bob Arum was able to, sell him for a little bit. But, when you had an up-and-coming fighter in Shakur, it was like, I want to, like, he's not going to get the fights outside of the network because of the promotion and the network. So he's like, biggest fight is right here. I'm not going to get Tank. I'm not going to get Devin or none of these guys. So that was his biggest fight. Both undefeated. And we saw what happened. I'm saying, like, with Shakur and Bob Arum was kind of like milking Shakur, putting him in there, matchmaking him well with guys that are aggressive, is going to come after him, and Shakur, his technical skill set will be able to outbox him, which is good strategy. And then you had, remember when he had Crawford? Crawford, he was matching him up too. Milking the guy. Notice though, none of those guys were really getting pay-per-view fights because he had the network, so it was easier for him to set up the fights because he knew he didn't need crazy big venues. He just needed the viewership. And as long as people had the interest in watching those guys fight, he can milk them. But I guess when he says he's losing the money with Terrence Crawford was he was established, and he's a champion, and in Bob Arum's eyes, he's not really marketing himself to make himself bigger than what he was. I think what Bob Arum wanted him to do more like outside of the sport, like commercials, things like that, market himself out pretty much. And, Crawford's like, nah, you're supposed to give me these fights, and it's not happening. So he ended up leaving because he's like, I'm not going to keep getting milked. Pause. And you see the same thing with Shakur. He tried it with Mayweather. Mayweather ended up leaving him. And there's nothing wrong with what Bob Arum, his system is like, all right, and he's doing the same thing with Mason. The difference with like Crawford was getting the knockouts. Shakur's not really getting the knockouts. Abdul Mason is an exciting fighter because he's getting the knockouts and people want to see him fight. So, he may be starting to getting into a position where he can start headlining, pay-per-view, but he needs the common opponent. Now, we'll be starting to see a lot of these networks go to the zone. Maybe we'll start getting some common opponents for him, you know what I'm saying? Because now it's no more about networks, it's about slot times and, making these fights happen now. So now networks are out of the way pretty much. And you got the zone, so we can see, like, who's Abdul Mason, going to fight next? Is it Keyshawn? Maybe, so I think he should have fought Keyshawn. Even though Keyshawn had a little bit more experience, but that would have been the good fight. I think Abdul Mason is battle tested, you know what I'm saying, like a little bit. But he hasn't, I don't know, we'll see. Now it's looking like Devin Haney versus Keyshawn Davis. And that's an interesting fight because, Keyshawn has the power, but Devin has the jab and the experience. And, that's going to be an interesting fight. Very interesting fight. Because that fight can pretty much go, people will favor Devin because of the experience. He's been battle tested, and we've never really seen Keyshawn Davis really battle tested, like facing any real adversity against like a top challenger. And that's the same thing with Abdullah Mason. Like, we haven't seen him. We've seen him in some adversity, in adverse moments that he got knocked down, and then we saw his last fight. And, he reminds me a little bit of Boots. And see, what Boots is doing is he knows that the fans want to see action. We don't, like fans, especially the casual fans. Boots is a fighter who's elusive. He can box, he can move, he got good footwork. He has power in both hands. He's ambidextrous. He can box both ways. He's going to come forward. He's going to make the fight. He's not going to do too much backing up and moving. You know what I'm saying? But he can do that. And he can make the fight a lot easier if he does do that. But he won't do that because he's trying to generate and keep the crowd energized. He's like a Marvin Hagler. Marvin Hagler was a slick fighter. If people don't know that, he can move, he can box, he can get on his, you know what I'm saying. But he chose to go forward, ambidextrous, same type of shit. You know what I'm saying. Just Boots is more quicker. You know what I'm saying. A little more athletic than Hagler, but they're pretty much the same style fighters. But you know what I'm saying. Boots has more of elusiveness with him. Abdul Mason, he's gonna come forward. He can box. He got knocked down twice, so his chin is held up the last few fights. he takes a lot of chances too, but not, you know what I'm saying, like he's more of a boxer puncher, like Boots, but you know, he's powerful. He's, you know what I'm saying, he's a devastating puncher. But you know, what's gonna happen? We got to see him battle tested against a top fighter. You know, that guy he fought last time, that was his man. To me, that fight looked like he was kind of carrying him just to make the fight interesting. You know, that's his man. He probably didn't want to embarrass him. You know, they got love for each other. You know, and they boys. You know what I'm saying? He probably didn't want to embarrass him. You know what I mean? But when it came down to them later rounds, I feel like once he knew he was down on them scorecards, you know what, I got to turn it up. Now, I can't, even though you're my boy, you know, and I think his boy understood that as well. But once he started feeling them shots, he started getting on that back pedal. And, you know, he knew, like, you know, listen, if I could just make it through the fight, you know, he couldn't. You know what I'm saying? Like, and made it to the 12th round. But you know what I'm saying, in a fight that Abdul Mason probably could have lost. You know, and I think he was kind of carrying his boy. You know what I'm saying? Like, it just looked like when he started to step it up and do what he was, you know, supposed to do when he came in there, the fight got really easy for him. I think after like round 6. So, you know, these are guys that are gonna try to make the fight. You know what I'm saying? Like, with Williams Zepeda and Lamont Roach, like I said, Shakur, he tried to do that with Williams Zepeda, and it almost turned into a phone fight, which, you know, Shakur, you know, he showed he can handle it, but he did get cracked in one of them rounds with a good shot. His legs looked a little unsturdy for a split second, and it wasn't really a clean shot, like, you know what I'm saying, but you know, nonetheless, he stood in the pocket, and he kept and you know what I'm saying, and he gave fans what they wanted to see, an exciting fight, you know, against a guy that could punch hard, you know, but let's see what happens, you know what I'm saying, because, like I said, to me, Shakur shouldn't fight like that. He shouldn't have, you know what I'm saying, I don't think he should fight like that again. The way he boxed Tio was good. You know, that he stood his ground and he worked behind his jab and, you know, timing. And I think that's mainly what his style is, like just the defense, tight guard, timing, the jab, you know what I'm saying, going to the body, stuff like that. Like, you know, being defensively sound, that's his style. And I think he should stay within that style, you know, and learn, you know, how to be more aggressive with it as time goes on, which I'm pretty sure he's working on. And but with Zepeda and Lamont Roach, he has, to me, to win this fight, work behind your jab, don't stand in front of this guy, and, you know, let your hands go. Keep him on his back foot if you can. You know, let him taste some power. You know, on the flip side, the way he can lose this fight is making it a phone booth fight. Don't allow this guy to cut the ring off and, you know, pin you on the ropes in the corner, because you're going to be right where he wants you, and now it's a phone booth fight, and that's going to favor whoever has the more endurance. And, you know, you don't want to get into a fight where it's like your skill set is now, you know, taken out of the play, and it's more about endurance, even though, you know, you both should be in great shape. You know, especially against a strong fighter like Zepeda. That's his game. He wants to mix it up, man. So it's gonna be a good fight, man. I would definitely have the upset alert. You know, don't count Zepeda out. That's a very good fight tomorrow. And if he was to win, I wouldn't be surprised. But like I said, that's a fight that is I wouldn't say 50-50, but that's a fight that if obviously any fighters execute, they're gonna lose. But if Lamont Roach don't execute his game plan, it could be a long or short night for him. And Zepeda, if he doesn't, you know, find ways to cut off the ring, get inside, and land some body shots, and try to hurt Lamont Roach early and rattle him, it could be a long night for him. So it's interesting fight. I said upset alert. You know, it's a live. Even though he's not a heavy underdog. When I looked at the thing, it was one. I think Lamont Roach was 135 and Zepeda was 115. So it's not like he's a heavy underdog. It's pretty much a 50-50 fight. You know, so and it's free. And that's what they need. We need a lot of these fights, man. And before I go, are not pay-per-view fights, man. Like that we are watching, man. Like, I keep saying this. Pay-per-view was about watching highly anticipated fights, man. What happened with this pay-per-view shit is, guys were winning belts or guys would get a big win, and then they would start, like, especially after the Mayweather era. Once the Mayweather era, came through, you got guys that were just, like, it just elevated their status. And it's like, but now what happens is it's stagnating their careers, because now you got to constantly find common opponents. Because, a lot of these fighters don't just, for me to pay a $70-something to see a fight, I'm not paying just to see Tank. Like, I want it in a bum. I don't want to say bum, but I don't like to use that. I'm gonna stop using that term, man. All fighters are great fighters, but to see him fight a lesser opponent, he's a heavy favorite, I don't want to see that, man. And I'm not paying $70 for this shit, right? Now, if it's Tank versus, like, Ryan, that was a good fight, but, like, see, what they were doing was they were using the blueprint of matchmaking, but they had to find great common opponents with good records, like how they were doing with Tank. They were picking, like, a lot of Latino fighters, Mexican fighters, because they knew they had the fan base, so they knew that the Mexicans, they're gonna buy the fights, so they would constantly pick these Mexican fighters, man, like Mario Barrios, Cruz, what was my man named? I think that's the I forgot my man name. The one he hit with the uppercut and knocked him out. Della something. I forgot his name, man. But yeah, he was, like, Tank. Like, he started getting to that pay-per-view status. He was exciting. So it was like he brought knockouts, and people wanted to see that. And, like, and then he started fighting, like, the Rollies, and he fought Ryan, another Mexican. And it brought out the crowds. So that's why his pay-per-views were successful. But they had to match him they had to find good fighters, and then the network shit and all of that. Like, and it was hard to cross over with the networks. So now you gotta find these common opponents. Then you gotta get venue. Like, I'm not a boxing insider, but I'm just from my observation, it's like, as a fan, it's like, that's a lot. And then, you're paying pay-per-view for this shit. Like, and that's how these fighters were eating. When you look at Canelo, he was doing the same thing, but Canelo was trying to, like, pick easy. He took the fight, he took the shit with the zone, and he knew he was already a pay-per-view fighter, and he was trying to get those easy touches, like, that he was fighting, and then what he did was when they started to complain about the opponents, people didn't like his opponents. He started belt chasing to make it look like, all right, I'm fighting top fighters, but these are guys he knows he's gonna beat. And that's another thing, like these matchmakers and these guys, they're gonna get in there with guys that they're confident they can beat. Most of the time. That's why we never saw the David Benavidez fight. He knows he goes in there, he loses bad to David Benavidez. His career is pretty much is over. You lost to Bivol. You got outboxed by Bivol. You were outboxed by Crawford. And you were outboxed by Mayweather. You know what I mean? Like, you were outboxed by a few fighters, but you would have went in there with David Benavidez. You would have had to take risks to try to make that fight competitive. And in doing so, possibly can get knocked out. This guy's fast and he has power and he's big. You know what I'm saying? So it would have been a tough fight for me. You know what I'm saying? So that's why we never got fights like that, because of, you know what I mean, like his not just his legacy, but, you know, the marketability would have went down. And you know, it's tough, man. You know what I'm saying? Like, so when I look at these fighters, you know, you look at why you see so much inactivity. It's like you gotta find the right opponents. Now you got the zone, right? You know what I'm saying? Like when I say find the right opponents, I mean, like, you know, you gotta match make the fight. You gotta make the fight. You gotta sell the fight too. So what they're doing now, they're getting these guys and they're selling them like they're good fighters, they're great fighters, great challengers to these guys, and you know, and you know, people are gonna buy the fight. They're looking at, like, if Tank could sell out 2 million, say 2 million viewers, or a million viewers, or a couple of million viewers when he fought Ryan, we can get him to fight like a Pitbull Cruz and sell the fight. We can get 800, 500 to 100 million views, to 100 to a million views. We still make our money back and get a profit. As you know, it's how they looking at it. And now with the zone, right? But, you know what I'm saying, with the zone, kind of like being a monopoly now on network, they double whammy you, man. And that's why I stopped buying a lot of fights, or order a lot of fights. But not only, you know, but back then I was only paying $10, $11 a month, you know what I'm saying, or you could order the pay-per-view on your cable, or ESPN, the rare pay-per-views they do have, you know. Now it's like when you even when you want to watch a fight, everything's pay-per-view. Even women's boxing now is pay-per-view. You know what I'm saying? And you know, we're seeing these fighters less and less. And you know, now with, like I said, with the zone, you're paying $30-something, and then when these fighters finally figure out a fight, you're paying $70 now on top of the $30-something for a fight that a person's probably a heavy favorite against, or you know what I mean? Like, so it's like it's we need these free fights back, man. The Prime was doing it with CBS, I think NBC, and what was they doing? That shit was another channel they was doing it with. No, I forgot. And people was viewing that shit, man. Those fights were getting views, man. People don't want to pay that shit, man. Like, yeah, you know what I'm saying? I'm all for the fighters. They supposed to make money. The niggas don't want to pay that shit, B. You know what I'm saying? Like, everybody ain't got $100. Then now, if it's 2 fights on in a month, that's $100 and something. Like, because now, like I said, the zone has the monopoly. Even if it's back-to-back months, you're still looking at a couple of $100 right there to watch 2 fights. And then on top of that, you're paying $30-something a month just for the for the platform. Like, come on, that's a double whammy, my nigga. Like, and every time these guys fight, it's pay-per-view. It's never like just, all right, it gotta be fighting a real lesser fighter for us to be pay-per-view. And so now it takes long for them to get opponents, and and you know, and now you gotta try to sell these fights. That's why you see so much damn drama going on in these pre-fights, man. You know what I'm saying? Shit is, like I said, man, shit is crazy. They have to figure something out, man. Cause I guarantee you people gonna start complaining about this shit, man. Everybody don't got it, man. That's why you see a lot of streaming networks. Niggas be streaming and stealing fights and shit. You know what I mean? Like, come on, man. Like, this is crazy, man. Anyway, man, I don't get my kids, man. I'm out, man. Manyface Publishing. Enjoy that fight tomorrow. And we'll see you guys later. Peace.